All right, I just found the most interesting subreddit I've ever found called Escaping Prison Planet, which is exactly what we talk about on this channel, escaping the Matrix. There's a thread on here which I thought was so good. It's titled, I've researched the afterlife for nearly 10 years. I'm convinced that reptilian beings are real and that the tunnel of light that people see when they die is a trap. Okay, let me just start off by saying I'm sorry I just brought up reptilians. I never thought I would. We're just going to read this about near-death experiences, what happens after we die, and just the nature of our realm in general. He backs this up with a bunch of data and examples about how the Gnostics maybe were onto something. So this is a video where you just got to sit back and relax. There's not going to be a lot of like graphics and stimuli. Just treat it like an old-fashioned radio show. So let me read it to you here. Introduction. For the last 10 years, I've been researching the nature of our reality, who or what controls our society from the shadows, and more importantly, what actually happens when the physical body dies and the soul leaves the body. Do we go to heaven? Do we go to hell? Do we just cease to exist? Is there a God that takes care of us? Once you begin to realize what's actually going on and how deep the rabbit hole really goes, you will never see the world in the same way, so buckle up and get ready. This is not going to be easy to swallow for most people. The whole point of this post is not to frighten you, but to present you the conclusions that I've come to in regards to what actually happens when our physical bodies die after having done what feels like endless research from every angle possible. I have thoroughly investigated near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, astral projection experience, past life regression, hypnosis data, remote viewing data, Gnosticism, ancient texts, and more. I cannot say I know with absolute certainty what happens when we die, but what I do know is that all these different ways, methodologies of researching lead to the same conclusion, and because of that, I believe that Earth is a prison planet and a massive farm used by various parasitic entities who are using us and have been using us as energetic food for what appears to be a very long time. I will share plenty of evidence from different sources and perspectives to make you understand how I connected all these dots and why I came to these conclusions. I promise you that the deeper you research this stuff, the more you will begin to realize that this is extremely real, important, and is possibly affecting every single one of us. All I'm asking you is to keep an open mind and to analyze the evidence yourself. Different sources that have nothing to do with each other indicate the same scenario. So what I'm about to explain below is a conclusion of all these sources. I listed all the sources at the end of the post. This post isn't necessarily about what one person is saying. It's about what the evidence is showing. So, reincarnation and the white tunnel of light. You know how anyone who's had a near-death experience talks about having seen a tunnel of light appear in front of them, or having met members of their family who had passed away? In some rare cases, even having met and spoken to who they thought was God? My research suggests that the tunnel of light which appears when we die is a trap, designed to wipe the whole memory of our last incarnation, and to recycle our souls into another body, thus keeping us in an infinite loop here on Earth. Because of this, the overwhelming majority of people walking the earth have a total amnesia and don't remember anything about their past existence nor anything from the periods in between their lives. If you do some research, though, you will notice that there is, however, a small number of people worldwide who are able to recall very specific details regarding who they were, what they did for a living, where they lived in a past life, etc. And he shows 4 different links that link to evidence, which are YouTube videos, from very popular stories like that one little kid who remembered being a World War II pilot shot down by the Japanese. He was able to name a bunch of people in his crew. He was able to remember his old family. He met the surviving relatives that he had in his past life, and he knew who they were and intimate details about the family. It's really crazy stuff. And there's a few examples of that happening where children really remember their past lives and they're able to back it up with evidence. Mind-blowing. Reincarnation is real. It's real. So, I continue. How do we know these people aren't making up their stories? There's lots of people out there who have been able to bring very solid pieces of evidence to sustain their claims, and those claims can be verified. A bunch of evidence he has, which shows that reincarnation is a very real phenomenon, despite what some of the world's religions claim to happen to the soul when a person dies. The reason these people's memories have only been partially erased and not fully erased remains unknown for now. The reason people that went through NDEs didn't come back with their memories wiped is because, unlike people who have died, they didn't end up going all the way through the tunnel of light to reach its destination. Many NDEers didn't enter the tunnel at all. while some have partially experienced it. All of them manage to return to their bodies and live to tell what they experience on the other side, hence the term near-death experience. So the astral spirit realm, the reptilians, and their agenda. The reptilians are found in the literature of multiple ancient cultures across the globe. Jainism and Hindu talk about the Naga, whom they describe as half-human, half-serpent deities. The Aztecs used to worship the Quetzalcoatl, whom they described as the serpent-like god. The Hopi Indians in North America referred to a race of reptoids called the Shetty, translated snake brothers. In Africa, shamans claim to bear extensive esoteric knowledge of a race of reptilian beings called the Chitauri, whom they say control the earth. Chinese, Korean, and Japanese legends talk about a race of reptilian beings called the Kappa. The Gnostics talk about the parasitic entities whom they call archons, who not only use humans as energetic food source, but they also prevent our souls from leaving the material realm upon the death of our physical bodies. The reptilians are both physical and astral beings. They've been heavily involved in the manipulation of mankind for thousands of years and are responsible for setting up the soul trap around the planet with the help of extremely advanced technology. This energy grid around the planet serves multiple purposes. One of its main purposes is to project this grandiose tunnel of light in the proximity of people who have just died in order to lure their souls in. This is the same tunnel of light that so many people who have had near-death experiences have reported seeing on the other side. The soul may be under the impression that the tunnel is going to take them to the heavens or perhaps to a higher plane of existence, depending on its level of awareness. In reality, when a soul enters the tunnel, its memory gets wiped and the soul is put into another body here on Earth in a reincarnation. The tunnel acts as a bait, and to make a good analogy, imagine a fisherman and his fishing rod. He throws in the bait, which hides the hook, and the fish gets trapped in it when they bite. We get tricked and trapped by the tunnel of light in a similar way. If we aren't aware that it is a trap in this case, we're the fish. The reptilians are highly intelligent, highly advanced technologically, and they lack empathy, which makes them dangerous. These beings see themselves as gods and humanity as their enslaved cattle. The reason they want to keep us here is because they need to feed off of us energetically. When people go through any kind of suffering, these entities feed off our lower frequency emotions such as fear, pain, grief, anger, jealousy, rage, anxiety, lust, because they are low vibrational beings that require low vibrational energy in order to survive. Rudolf Steiner, one of the most prolific and gifted scientists, philosophers, and esotericists of his time, explains how the archons feed off of our fear and anxiety. Yeah, I hit the link and he talks about like Loosh and all that good stuff. Actually, I'm going to talk more about Loosh. Remind me to do that. The majority of people living on this planet today have been continuously reincarnating on this planet for thousands of years because we keep falling for the same trap when our physical bodies die. Most of us have no memories of our past existences since our memories get wiped before every reincarnation. So every time we are born on this planet, we think we've just arrived for the first time with a grand purpose or mission to fulfill given to us by who we think is God. Here's a quote here from Bernard Carr, professor of mathematics at Cambridge. Our consciousness interacts with another dimension. Our physical sensors only show us a three-dimensional universe. What exists in the higher dimensions are entities we cannot touch with our physical sensors. So when our physical bodies die, or when we have an out-of-body experience, our soul goes into the astral spirit realm, and while we can still observe what's happening on Earth, but we can no longer interact with physical matter. These parasitic entities exist mainly, but not exclusively, in the astral plane. It's crucial that we become aware of the fact that these entities, who are masters of deceit, play God in order to trick us into accepting reincarnation and thus having our memories wiped, convincing us that it's in our best interest to do so. How are they able to do that, you may ask? When we're out of our bodies, the laws of physics as we know them no longer have the same effects upon us, as we find ourselves in a different realm, in which we are able to do things that would be impossible in the physical world. Our souls are pure energy, so in the astral/spirit realm, we can change the shape of our astral body, spirit, and anything we want by simply willing it to happen. Because unlike the physical world, we can use our consciousness to manifest a different-looking body in an instant when we're in the astral plane, since we are no longer affected by physical laws and limitations. We can also fly around or teleport by simply using our intention to do so. We can even go to higher vibratory realms where the real good-hearted beings live if our vibration is high enough. And this reminds me of lucid dreaming. When you're lucid dreaming, you have full control of yourself, and people say that it feels super real. They can't tell that between, dream world and the real world. So Nikola Tesla quote here: "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." So if you understand that in the astral, any entity can change the shape of its astral body into anything it wishes to, then you realize that even the most malevolent entity possible can present itself to you in a different form to trick you into thinking you are speaking to God or to your guardian angel, or even to one of the members of your family who had passed away. They do this because they know you'd put your trust in these religious figures or in the familiar faces, and once they gain that trust, they can easily manipulate you into doing things that are not in your best interests at all. They masquerade as beings of light that emanate a fake sensation of love and peace to make you think they're the good guys who are there to guide you and to give you your next mission to fulfill. This is mentioned even in the Bible, in Corinthians 11:14. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. So afterlife tricks and scams. If you don't enter the tunnel of light when your time comes, you need to be aware that these entities will present themselves to you in the form of angels, Jesus, God, saint, guides, ascended masters, guardian angels, and they're going to try to convince you that you need to go back to Earth so you can pay back your karmic debt, or to continue learning, or that you have to go back with a special mission to fulfill, which is complete bullshit, but we keep falling for these scams because they tend to make sense from our narrow and pre-programmed perspectives. Good luck fulfilling your special mission if you can't remember what the mission was. We put blind trust in what they say to us because of our constant religious indoctrination during our lives on Earth, and these beings know that. So they can't force us to reincarnate because each soul has free will, but they can pretend to be someone they're not in order to put ideas in our head that's in our best interest to accept reincarnating back onto Earth, making it sound as if they're doing us a favor so that we can evolve, learn, or fix previous mistakes. And what they're basically doing is they're using our own free will against us. The real purpose of continuous reincarnation is soul enslavement, disguised as spiritual evolution. A free will decision is impossible without memory and information. Because our memories are being wiped after each lifetime, many of us live under the illusion that we're currently living our first life on this planet, and we came here to learn. Learning about life on Earth and experience it would be useful if we didn't lose our memories after each lifetime. But it doesn't matter what we learn over here as long as everything gets erased after each reincarnation, and we have to relearn everything from scratch over and over again in an endless loop. Earth is a prison planet camouflaged as a cosmic school. This idea of a cosmic school has been going around in order to trick souls into wanting to come and stay here in order to learn. This whole matrix is designed to drain our energy, wipe our memories over and over again, and keep us trapped. See, I can see that being true, but maybe it's both. Maybe somehow it's a cosmic school and a prison planet, because in these esoteric concepts, it's usually not just like one black or white definition. Things usually exist on different levels. So anyway, many people that went through near-death experiences even recall being accompanied by a loving angel who showed them their life review. The reason the entities show us life reviews is so we can relive certain moments from our lives in which we made certain mistakes, and by reliving those moments, feelings of guilt, shame, and remorse are being generated inside of us, making us want to compensate for them. These beings then use these feelings against us, telling us things such as, you have made these mistakes, you have to go back to fix this and that, nobody is perfect, and we all make mistakes. So their emotional manipulation scam will never end if you buy into it, because being human, it's impossible to not make what we perceive to be humanly mistakes. This NDE, for example, shows how one woman is shown not one but two fake life reviews in order to convince her to go back. It links to a YouTube video of a past life regression hypnotist who was interviewing people. So here we go. It says, New Age believers who promote calling upon your spirit guides, guardian angels, ascended masters, and religious figures for help are actually doing huge damage to themselves and to all of humanity, and they are not even aware of it. You are everything you need to succeed. You are a powerful creator being, and you don't need to give your power away to anybody. In defense of this, I've heard a lot of people say the spirit guides are just an extension of you. So when you call upon your spirit guides, don't think of them as being outside of yourself. It's like your higher self. It is you. So let's see. How they're using your religious beliefs against you. Religion has programmed you to believe that at the moment of your death, a spiritual judgment type of scenario will take place, the biblical judgment, and it will be expected of you to give your authority away to these beings, gods, angels, guides, letting them decide your fate, so that when your time actually does come, you won't even question these beings and what they are doing with you. Instead, you will simply accept whatever they ask from you because everything will seem to be going as planned, since that's what religion programmed you to believe will happen when your physical life will end. These entities take advantage of the fact that you have been continuously conditioned to believe in an afterlife savior who will take you to the heavens if you're a good boy, even if you're an atheist. When you see this God or Jesus figure right there in front of you in the astral, you may start to have second thoughts about what you thought about religion back on Earth, and you will most likely end up accepting what these entities want you to do because your perception of reality can change in an instant in a shocking and surprising scenario like that. Yeah, there's no atheists in foxholes, they say. So religion has also given you the sense of being a guilty sinner who has to worship, obey, and pray to a certain God, depending on your religion, in the hopes of afterlife salvation. The real salvation is not coming from the parasitic entities who pretend to be our creators. It is coming from ourselves. In order for this to happen, we have to become aware of what actually awaits us when we die, so we can use our free will to put an end to the vicious reincarnation cycle. The real, powerful, infinite creator God, who has nothing to do with any religious movement, is already within you. You are source energy. We are the saviors we have been waiting for, and we don't need to give our power away to anybody. Think about this. If you're born somewhere in Europe, North America, South America, for example, then the main religions of those areas tell you that God put you on this earth to live your life, and at the end of that life, there will be judgment. God will then decide whether you'll go to heaven or hell for eternity. But what if you're born in other areas of the world, such as the Middle East or India, or any country in which the main religion is either Buddhism, Hinduism, or Jainism? These religions teach that after death, there is reincarnation, no heaven, no hell. So why is it that the place we're born in on this planet dictates a certain belief in something so important such as our existence beyond physical life? Will random luck is really going to dictate what's going to happen to each one of us at the moment of our death? Will each one of us have a different afterlife fate just because we're born in different places around the world? It is all a part of the game of deception. But the more you expand your awareness, the easier you can see through the lies and deceit of the social and religious programming that we've all been through one way or another. So why is source energy / the creator of this universe allowing all of this to happen? Each being in this universe, whether malevolent or benevolent, has free will. Ask yourself, why are we humans allowed to enslave the animals here on Earth? Why are we allowed to slaughter more than 3 billion animals on a daily basis? Why are we allowed to keep animals locked up in farms and cages until the day they die? Why are we allowed to be so cruel to the other forms of life? Why? Because we, just like these entities do, have free will from our perspective. We do these things because we need something from them, which is energy in the form of physical food. We think we are entitled to do what we do because we are superior to them and because we need to survive. We perceive these things to be normal and part of life. From the perspective of the animals, however, they were aware of it. We would be their reptilians since we operate just like them. But we never see ourselves that way. We don't think we're the bad guys because all we do is try to survive. The entities don't see themselves as the bad guys either, since they're also just trying to survive. What we do to the animals is almost exactly what these beings do to us, and they need to keep us imprisoned here to feed off of us, just like the farmers keep their cattle locked up, and the farms and stables to get what they need from them. So evidence 1, the perspective of life regression hypnosis. Calogero Grifasi is a past life regression hypnotist from Italy. He has posted thousands of past life regression sessions on YouTube that explain what happens to the soul in between lives, how the reptilians feed off of us energetically while we're physically on Earth, and how they try to manipulate us into accepting reincarnation when we die by disguising themselves as religious figures in the astral. I've analyzed more than 400 sessions of this with different clients from all over the world, but the following sessions are the ones most significant that he's posted in English. So yeah, this idea of like parasitic entities feeding on us, it sort of just resonates with me because I have a very unique experience. When I was a child, I would constantly like be tormented by like things in my room, by like nightmares that I would have. I saw like shadow beings, like my toys being thrown around and stuff. And looking back on it, it was crazy. Like, I know children are very imaginative, but I have like real stories and examples of just crazy stuff happening. Like waking up and all my alarms would be like set to different times and the electricity never went out. And it was the same night that I saw like shadow beings with glowing eyes. And like, that's insane to say that to someone. Like, they're going to think you're like schizophrenic if you tell the wrong person. Or they'll just chalk it up as like childish imagination. They won't take it seriously, but I know it was real. And looking back on it, I have no context to compare it to if I look at it through the realm of materialism. So then that's made me branch off to the esoteric like this to try to figure out like what happened in my childhood. And the only logical explanation I can get from it is like there are beings here that collect our loosh. And I've heard reports that there's something about like a child's fear that is like the most delicious to them. Like the fear of like an old man like tastes kind of gross to these archonic beings, but there's something about a child's fear that they just love for whatever reason. It's messed up. So he shows a bunch of different sessions about reptilian entities who interfere with us during our lives on Earth. So the information that's coming out of Collegero's sessions doesn't actually come from himself directly, as he's the person who investigates and asks the questions. The information is coming from people that are able to enter the hypnotic state of mind, which are either his clients or people who enter the hypnotic state for his clients. Yada, yada. He also shows an American woman who practices it as well. Evidence 2, the perspective of Gnosticism and Buddhism. The word Gnostic comes from the term gnosai, in Greek, which means knowledge. The Gnostics were a group of people who seek to reveal the truth of the supreme essence of the divine, thus overthrowing false beliefs of God, society, and life in general. They say that humans are divine souls trapped in the physical world, and that the only way one could attain salvation from this place is not through worshiping the demiurge, the false god of religion, but through gaining secret esoteric knowledge about who you really are, where you came from, and about how these parasitic entities operate, which will eventually set you free from this physical world in which your soul is trapped in. In the Gnostic texts, they talk about the parasitic entities whom they call archons, who not only use us as an energetic food source, but they also prevent our souls from leaving the material realm upon the death of our physical bodies. The Gnostic texts describe at length manipulation of humankind by what they call non-human archons or rulers. More information about the Gnostic beliefs can be found here. Buddhism teaches that reincarnation is an endless cycle of suffering, the wheel of samsara, that can only be broken by achieving enlightenment, and the Gnostics say something similar. In other words, we are stuck in a reincarnation cycle where we are bound to continuously suffer one way or another, life after life, until we spiritually wake up and break free from the reincarnation cycle. Evidence 3, the perspective of remote viewing. He talks about how in the 1970s, the CIA was used for espionage purposes. They copied the remote viewing that they found out the Russians were doing it. Soviets, whatever. And then they started doing it themselves, and they found that it actually sort of worked. He links to the Farsight Institute. That's a YouTube channel where they have the best remote viewers in the world. So I was skeptical about remote viewing at first, but the Farsight Institute really interests me. They do this one thing where they do predictions of what's going to happen in the month coming up. So they'll send their remote viewers in, be like, analyze the biggest news stories in this month coming up, and they'll give like really detailed explanations of things that'll happen. And so I tracked them. I wrote down notes like, okay, they said in June these two things will happen. We'll see if they actually do occur in July. The two occurrences, and this was back maybe 4 years ago, was they predicted a very rare ball lightning event that would take place in Africa. And they also predicted a plane crashing in a jungle. Really random. But in July, I actually saw both of those events happen. I researched the news. I saw a ball lightning event occurred in Africa and killed a bunch of cattle. It was like a crazy, weird natural disaster. And then a plane crashed in Cuba. just like in the jungle, just like how Farsight predicted. I don't know if Farsight predicted that it would specifically occur in Africa, the ball lightning, but they accurately predicted the ball lightning event. Really random, I know, but like they check out. Like it's scary what they do. I have a really random story here. Someone reached out to me on my channel a while back who was actually a millionaire, and he paid me money to just like have conversations with me to talk about these esoteric subjects. And one of his businesses was he paid people to remote view sporting events, and then he placed bets on them. And then he hired me to be a remote viewer. And this guy had so many connections. He actually hired people who worked at the CIA with, what is it, whatever that project was called that the CIA used to study remote viewing. So I'm sure someone will comment it. And he hired Brett Stewart, and I worked with Brett Stewart, which this article mentions. You can look him up on YouTube. He's a really good remote viewer. And me and him and like two other guys would remote view sporting events, and we would be pretty accurate with him. We had like a 64% accuracy rate by remote viewing this stuff, and it made the company some decent money. I stopped doing it though. I prefer making money with my tree business. But remote viewing is legit. I'm just not as good as the people in the Farsight Institute, but literally anyone can remote view. Yeah, I can talk more about it if you guys want in another video. Oh, you might think I'm crazy after I just told you that story, because it is insane. It is insane. And that guy actually went to prison, the guy who reached out to me. And honestly, he's not a good dude. He's not. That's another reason why I stopped working for his company. He's probably going to be in prison for a very, very long time. So, all right, let's continue. Brett Stewart, he mentions... Yada, yada. Evidence 4. The perspective of Robert Monroe. Robert Monroe was the father of an out-of-body experience and astral projection. After having had an out-of-body experience for more than 30 years, Monroe discovered that our reality is used to create and harvest what he calls loosh energy, emotional energy that every being produces. He claims that this universe has been enslaved for the production of loosh energy by interdimensional beings who see themselves as rulers, and humanity as their enslaved cattle. His book, Far Journeys, gives detailed information about loosh. Here's some references from his book. So we're going to go off on a slight tangent here to talk about loosh and Robert Monroe's findings on this in his book, Far Journeys. So this part was really interesting. So Robert Monroe was... apparently talking to this light being. He researched out-of-body experiences. He started an institute with researchers to scientifically investigate this phenomenon. And so this light being told Monroe that when humans die, their energy is released and harvested by transdimensional beings who use it to extend their own lifespans. The claim is that the universe is a garden created by these beings as their food source. The Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. That could be a connection there. According to Monroe's story, animals are intentionally positioned on this planet to feed on plants and on each other, thereby releasing the life force of their victim so it can be harvested. In a predator-prey struggle, exceptional energy is produced in the combatants. The spilling of blood in a fight-to-the-death conflict releases this intense energy, which the light beings call loosh. Loosh is also harvested from the loneliness of animals and humans, as well as from the emotions engendered when a parent is forced to defend the life of its young. Another source of loosh is humans' worship. According to Monroe's informant, our creators, the cosmic energy farmers, intentionally equipped animals with devices like fangs, claws, and super speed in order to prolong predator-prey combat and thereby produce more loosh. In other words, the greater the suffering, the more life force is spewed from our bodies, and the tastier the energy meal for our creators. This story, told to Monroe, which threw him into a 2-week depression, corresponds to reports in some of the world's oldest scriptures, the Vedas, Upanishads, and Puranas of India. There we read that the universe is upheld by sacrifice, and that all who are living in this world are the sacrificers. There is none living who does not perform yagya, which means sacrifice. This body is created for sacrifice, and arises out of sacrifice and changes according to sacrifice. I feel like I've read something like that before too. Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, that's like such a true, brutal way to view the world, but there's truth behind it. All right, evidence 5. The perspective of psychedelic experiences. Many people who have done psychedelics report a certain kind of experience involving entities farming their negative emotions and feeding off of them. I took like what Terence McKenna would call a heroic dose of mushrooms when I was in Amsterdam. And I saw blue eyes on the wall as clear as I would see a person's eyes in front of me. It was wild. And then we hear accounts of angels in the Bible having like blue eyes all over them. Gnostic texts talk about the blue eyes. And this was like before I read any of that stuff. I didn't know any of that esoteric knowledge. It's just what I saw from my like insane psychedelic experience. This stuff's wild. So that just gave me further reason to believe in like the astral spirit world. So evidence 6, the perspective of David Icke. For the last 30 years, David Icke has been a full-time investigator into who and what is actually controlling our society from the shadows. David Icke believes that the universe is made up of vibrational energy and consists of an infinite number of dimensions. His vast research suggests that an interdimensional race of reptilian beings have hijacked the Earth and continuously manipulate global events in order to keep humans controlled and in constant fear. So he's saying the reptilian beings hijack the Earth. That almost implies to me like this place could be like a heaven, a Garden of Eden, but it's been hijacked. Because I really do believe we can bring like heaven onto this plane of existence, but then I also resonate with the idea that this world was created by the Archons, by the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth. You know, maybe I'm getting too specific, but generally that could be how this whole matrix was brought about. David Icke has wrote more than 20 books about how our society actually works and who runs it. His books are extremely well researched. Yep. Evidence 7, the perspective of Wes Penry. Wes Penry is a researcher of metaphysics, the alien presence on Earth, the matrix that we find ourselves in, our human origins, and much more. In this article, Wes explains how the tunnel of light death trap works and how to avoid it. The information is very complex, but extremely well researched. So then, yeah, he goes into the evidence of a bunch of different researchers here. Oh, perspective of Alex Collier. I used to listen to him. Alex Collier claims to be in contact with an ET race from the constellation of Andromeda. According to him, the Draconians, reptilians, are the force behind the repression of human populations everywhere in this galaxy. He goes into detail about that in this video. So, in this clip, Alex Collier gives instructions how to escape the tunnel of light soul reincarnation trap at death. He claims that if you ignore the tunnel of light and you say to yourself, I wish to go home, you will return to the dimension you came from before you came to Earth. Yeah. Because, you know, when you're in the astral realm, astral projecting, you can just kind of morph into whatever you want. So it's safe to assume that these evil archonic beings can also morph into like Jesus or the saints and whatnot. So maybe like when you die, go into it with a mindset of like, I don't know anything. Like if you're talking to God in the afterlife, be like, I don't know, no disrespect, God, but I don't know if it's actually you or not. I was tricked a lot when I lived down Earth. So I'm going to play it safe and assume that people are now tricking me after death as well. So, I mean, no disrespect. I just need time to figure this out and figure out what's going on. And if God is truly good and benevolent, he'll be patient with you and give you time to figure out what's actually happening. So, evidence number 12, the perspective of Wayne Bush. Massive research on the afterlife made by researcher Wayne Bush indicates that the white tunnel of light is luring souls into a mind-wipe reincarnation trap. How the demiurge false god entity controls our society and more. I got to read that. Okay. Final words. Waking up to the possibility that we could be living on a prison planet can be unsettling, disturbing, depressing, but also enlightening, awakening, and liberating. However, if we are to do something about our situation, then it must be known. The same information that I presented here is being confirmed by a variety of different sources, which in my opinion is evidence that there's a lot of truth to this theory. I don't pretend to know the absolute truth, nor am I saying that the information that I've presented you is the absolute truth. The only thing I can say is these are the conclusions I've reached about our reality in the afterlife after having researched them for many years. If anyone says they are 100% sure without a shadow of a doubt about what happens when we die, that person is a fraud in my opinion. Nobody will be able to get to the 100% absolute truth about this stuff, but what you can do is to research this topic from every angle and perspective possible so that you can put as many puzzle pieces together as you can, which will allow you to have a greater understanding of who we really are, where we came from, and what we're actually on this planet for. So, do not stop here. I highly encourage you to do your own research on the subject and try to come up with your own conclusion about what awaits us when we die. Most people only rely on what religion and the Bible tells them about the afterlife and never do any individual research themselves whatsoever. Religion offers one perspective, not the full picture. You are an infinite, powerful creator being who will never cease to exist. But if your soul is put in a new body with no memory of your previous incarnation, then that's as close to dying on a soul level as you'll get, because you'll be reborn as a completely new person who has to relearn everything from scratch. A new version of you who will never know the old version of you and what you were all about. So good luck in your journey to find the truth about the afterlife. So a lot of spiritual people will probably tell you about the Akashic records. So the Akashic records apparently keep tabs on everything that happens on planet Earth. So optimistically, maybe everything isn't for naught that we learned in our past reincarnations. I feel like it won't be, because there's epigenetics that exists where when we improve ourselves, it happens on a genetic level. Our DNA actually remembers it. If you get into really good physical shape, it actually improves your DNA and genetics down the line, even if you weren't in that good shape originally. So if our DNA is able to pass through generation to generation, then why doesn't what our soul learn? Then what our soul learns will also pass through generation to generation. It's as above, so below. With our physical DNA, our soul will also recall what we've learned. So, all right. Yeah, I just wanted to go over this really cool Reddit post, and hopefully you got something out of that. But go and check out this thread yourself. It's really cool. So, all right, guys, have a good one.